Well, welcome to the Hamilton Wood Type and Printing Museum. This is the fifth in our series of oral histories, and today we're lucky enough to have Dave Artz in to talk to us about his part in the process of cutting type, because the whole project is in and around the entire type cutting area. Dave, as somebody who worked in a number of areas at Hamilton, had his own specialty. But first, I need to tell everybody that this is a project that is funded by the Wisconsin Arts Board, the state of Wisconsin, the National Endowment for the Arts. So as I said, this is the fifth in our series, and so what we're going to be talking about today with Dave is the fact that he was a trimmer for Hamilton, and I usually try to start pretty basic by just, where and when were you born?
I was born in Milwaukee in '52. And then my dad, after service, he moved up to Anigo, where he bought Dad's farm, Grandpa's farm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to school and everything up there, and then there was no jobs when I graduated. And someone told us, come to Two Rivers. They were hiring. Miro was hiring, and Hamilton's was hiring at the time. And
sure. Would there have been work on the farm if you wanted to do that, or?
Yeah, but I was the oldest, and there was 6 underneath me yet.
Okay.
So it'd been quite a few years before. And back then, the farm only had 13 cows.
No, yeah, so not too many people.
Yeah.
At least not too many that are going to get paid for it. Well, so you heard that there was work down here. Around what time would that have been?
I graduated in '70, so probably '70, '71.
Okay. Would you have been willing to take the job, whether it would have been Miro or Hamilton, or did you?
Yeah, so I didn't know nothing, so
yeah.
It made no difference. When I started at Hamilton's, I was in the specialty shop where we made, when they made cabinets, they, next to a wall, they needed a 4-inch strip or something to match everything. When they put cabinets against the wall,
Okay.
That's what we made.
Then, once you, I'm guessing that either they were willing to do all of the training, or maybe you had some skill as a woodworker before that, or had you never done anything?
Haven't done none of that.
Nothing like that. So, do you remember what building you were in when you started out, or which floor?
In the wood plant, and then top floor I started at.
Okay.
What, 5 stories or 4?
Yeah, at least 4 for sure. Do you remember who taught you the job?
Which one? What type?
Well, even at the beginning when you were in the specialty area.
Greg Voisey.
Oh, okay. I met him. Was Greg manager for the whole floor, or just your area?
He was a foreman or supervisor of that area.
Mm-hmm. Was he good to work for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the work got slow, then I started pushed around a little bit. And
Sure. Did you like working in that area, or were you looking for? Yeah.
No, it was nice. You're pretty much on your own, just like wood type. I was pretty much on your own then.
Mm-hmm. So you weren't working with a big crew
No,
up
it was
there?
about 6 or 7 of us up there.
Uh-huh. Do you remember any of those guys that you used to work
No.
with? Okay. Then, in terms of moving to the type shop, was that a choice you made, or did they ask?
No, we got slow in that department. They just told me, but I like to go down there.
Okay. And then I was asking before about who taught you that position, the trimming.
Yeah. Veneer.
Vernarsh?
Could be.
Or Wiener Vernarsch?
Yeah.
That's
That sounds familiar.
it's such a unique name that once I heard it, I kind of remembered it. But he was then a trimmer as well.
Yeah. I think once I got trained, I think he retired or right after that.
Oh, okay. Did he train anybody else at the same time as you, or did they already have other trimmers?
They had other trimmers. It was Arnie and a lady.
Mm-hmm. I know that there was a woman named Bernice who worked there. Do you know if she was there at the time?
No, not at that time.
Okay. All
She
right.
was up there after I was up there for a few years.
Oh, okay. So as far as, if you remember, the way the floor was laid out, trimming was next to the pantographs in the type cutting, or a different space?
They're pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
Against one set of windows was the pantograph, and we were just around the corner, the other facing north.
Oh, okay. Nice view from up there, I imagine.
Oh, office buildings.
Oh. Yeah, that's right, if you face that direction. Was it noisy working around the pantographs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very noisy.
Yeah.
Well, just as noisy as here when they start them up.
Yeah, well, and they were probably running more than the one that we run here.
They were all running.
Oh, okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 8 or 10 of them were running.
Oh, wow, that would be enough to go deaf. So you had a number of type cutters and then a number of you trimming all working
Yeah, it was
together?
four of us, I think.
Uh-huh. How long do you think it took before you felt comfortable trimming? I mean, was it a hard thing to
For
learn?
me, it wasn't. Some people never do catch on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would think you'd have to be steady, if nothing else, you know.
And you got to sit for 8 hours or 10
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah. What was it like, I mean, just for your eyes alone? Did it strain your eyes just to?
Yeah, the little ones did.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever use any kind of magnifying glass or anything? So,
Pretty much everything was just eyed up.
okay. Well, and you still don't wear glasses, so your eyes must be
Yeah.
pretty good.
I got them here.
Yeah. All right. Do you remember, I mean, were you cutting like hundreds of different kinds of type, or was there some that were more common?
Yeah, I think 85, 88 was a big one for our show card.
Mm-hmm. Was most of the type you were cutting for show card?
Yeah, I'd say 80%. And
Oh, okay.
then sign press took some, they were kind of going out.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who are maybe not aware of what we're talking about in terms of sign and show card press type, it was designed later than what Hamilton originally did, where the block that the letter sat on was a solid chunk of wood. There was that slot on the back, so you could kind of hook it onto ribs within the press. That basically held it in place.
Yeah, then each one had their own special thickness
Okay.
that you couldn't interchange them. If you put the slot to it, it had to go to show card or it had to go to sign press.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
They had different thicknesses.
Ah. Do you remember who was giving you the most work, or was it just a lot of all of it?
All of it.
Yeah.
I said show card was the big one.
Mm-hmm. When you were at Hamilton, did they ask you to cut type at all then?
Yeah, I pretty much ran. At the end, I did some pantographing. I did a lot of cutting the blocks to size, and then cutting off the letters and stuff,
Okay.
and then putting the grooves in.
So whatever they needed, basically.
Yeah. And then I packed the stuff up for shipment too. Whenever, well, I was at the bottom of the totem pole.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the way that works, doesn't it? Now, let's see. If So if you were at Hamilton, say from the early 70s, eventually then you moved on to HWT, right?
Yeah.
Did they ask you to move, or was there just no job left at Hamilton in cutting?
There was no job at Hamilton's. It was that or get laid off or go to the press room.
Oh, okay. And the press room didn't sound interesting?
No.
Well, now, where was HWT in town?
Down 17th Street by the river.
Oh, okay. All right. Was that a new building at the time?
No.
Oh. You said that pretty quick, like it was far from it.
Yeah.
How many people were working in that plant?
Oh, the best time, maybe 10.
Oh, okay. So pretty small operation. Do you remember who else was working there when you were?
Mardell, Carroll. Then a couple of people, they came and gone.
Based on the need and that
Yeah.
sort of thing? Okay. Were you seeing a real lot of orders, or did they eventually taper off?
They just tapered off.
Okay. So you could kind of see maybe that
It was,
it was going to run out. One of the things that you had mentioned to me a couple of years ago was that you had done a little bit of type cutting as well. But what surprised me was you had said you worked this big green beast
Yep.
behind. Well, what was that like?
hard. I'm at you. Then it was on sidewood. If your router wasn't sharp, well, then you split it. Then you had to start over. And bumpy, so when you had to trim it, it was a lot of filing, a lot of knifing.
Well, I noticed that there used to be a counterweight on the end. I mean, what was it like to
Yeah.
push around?
Hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it was jerky as you were pushing it. It ain't like your small ones, and yet you get a nice smooth.
Mm-hmm. How big of type were you cutting on that pantograph?
72 point.
Oh, okay. So,
that's 12
roughly,
inches, ain't it?
yeah, about a foot tall. Okay. But can you use a 72 line pattern to cut 72 line type?
Yeah, that's what we did.
Oh, okay.
It was set somehow that it did work that way.
Oh, all right. When we were clearing out at the in the factory, I found a lot of patterns that had never been mounted onto blocks. You have any idea why they would have cut the outline of the letter?
Some of them were interchangeable. They took because it's nailed on, they took it off and then they nailed the other one on.
Oh, just to keep the same template, huh? All right. Did you have to use this machine very much?
No, once or twice a year, that was it.
Oh, okay. And that was probably really lucky then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have never seen it run. It looks like it's been modified from the others because you don't have a router in the same way you get a belt, right? That
Yeah.
goes to a
We
motor?
got a electric-driven one.
Okay. Did it cut well,
Yes,
other than bumping and...
it just moved real hard and moved. Yeah, well, something that big and oxy, and there ain't. If all the bearings and everything probably worked nice, it might have been and balanced right.
Yeah, yeah. What about the other pantographs? Did you have to cut much there on those machines?
No, just a fill in here and there. I don't think I went up very high in the classification in that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and like I was saying, or at least guessing, that at HWT, less people, you probably just filled in where
Yeah.
you were needed.
Well, there I pretty much filled in wherever. When we cut the logs, then we did that, and
Oh, really? With that carriage saw?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What was it like to run that?
it wasn't that bad.
No?
No, you had to lift, you put the log on, and you just pushed it to bump it, and you cut it in that thick.
Were they almost all roughly?
All the same.
Okay. All right. Then you never had any, did you run the sander at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay. When you were running the sander and the, would you call the next machine a planer?
Brought it down to one. The first one has a saw blade, and then it took the roughness off.
Okay.
So then when you put the block down on the sander, they were level.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it brought it closer to the sizes so that your 3 sandpapers sanded it.
So you were going to run it through there twice, in other words?
Yeah, you ran it through okay, first you set that one up, ran it through. Then while that one was running through, then you put your 3 pieces on the sander.
Okay.
When that ran through, then you took those 3 pieces out and put 3 more on, then you ran that one, then the sander was back.
Okay. Did one person run both machines?
Yes, you ran them both at the same time.
Oh, okay. That must have kept you fairly busy.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to keep up.
Then you had to run them to get them to check them for the right thickness.
Sure, right, right. So that is pretty much everything. I mean, going from the log to the other end of it. What I was thinking about is that I don't know that people necessarily know what trimming even is or why you would have to trim the type after the pantograph. You mind just giving us a little explanation of why it needed trimming?
Okay. On a pantograph, the router is round, and like on all your corners, on your E's, F's, L's, you trim, you make it a point where the router makes them round. And then you file it because the router leaves a little burr or a little roughness on them. When you print, it'll show up like a sore thumb.
Printers will let you know, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as I look at different type faces, some of them, of course, are really angular or they have a lot of points.
Yeah.
Every font's going to have some, you know, the M and the V and the N. But did some styles of type give you more headaches than others?
No, not really. Some of them just took longer to do.
Okay.
Like your real fine stuff, like the circus type, that took then a lot longer. And your real narrow ones took a lot longer. When you use a die to make your M's and stuff, you got that long die and stuff that line everything up straight.
On the circus type, though, beyond the trimming, did you also stamp that on the die stamper as well? Die stamper being the machine with the wheels over there.
The dots we used that for.
Okay. So more of a decorative part of it. Okay.
Then like your teardrops and stuff, that was all done by the eye and hammer.
All right. Did they give you a certain amount you had to finish in a day?
Yeah.
Okay.
The fancier it is, the more time you got per piece than if you did a straight.
Sure,
job.
I suppose those Gothics were less
Then
well.
if you had a script and stuff, those took a little longer because you had a
more to chisel, more to file, and everything else.
and then you have to line each piece up so when they put it in the press, it's like it's script and
Oh, right, right. Well, you know, we're having Mardell cut a typeface that is named for her, but one of the things we're noticing on it is that, you know, as you lock it all up in a row, everything's got to be exactly dead on.
Yeah.
When you're trimming, would you go through and be your own judge as to whether they were ready to go, or would you have somebody
No.
that was...
If you didn't think it was good enough for the customer, you threw it out.
Okay. Well, I suppose it'd be tough to guess what sort of percent out of a set
Yeah.
wouldn't work.
Well, each piece will be different because you're hand trimming them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're not, I meant, most time you throw them out because a piece of wood cracked on you or there's a big dent in it.
Sure.
That's usually number one thing that threw them out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or if you got the big dies that you were hammering, if they caved in or something, they knows you threw out.
Oh, yeah.
But otherwise, 90% of it went through.
Oh, okay. One of the things that I know we had you come in to do was taking half rounds and cutting them down to the size of the type, cut to line.
Yeah.
But one of the things I thought was interesting is when you explained to me that, you had to kind of figure the best cut, basically. I'm going to grab a piece just to let people know what we're talking about. I guess I better be careful here. All right, Dean, I'll ask you to hand me a half round so I don't knock everything over here. If you're cutting this to, let's make it easy for people,
12 line?
6 line or
Six, okay.
something like that.
Usually we start 18 line or 36 line on the bigger pieces,
Right.
and then you work your way down.
Sure.
Okay, now like this piece for getting a 12 line, you cut it in the center and you get 2.
Okay. So you're just trying to maximize.
Yeah, or you cut here and then you'll go down. See, but there's a crack here, so that's no good. Yeah, so you'd have to cut it off here because there's a crack there.
Right, right. And then would you save the end for
Yeah,
small
you'd save
stuff?
this piece and then for 10 line or 8 or 6.
So then if there's something marked like this, is this pretty much
That's
telling you
garbage.
that's
No,
garbage?
but you could still cut it here, get your 12, but then when you square your ends off, you just cut that off.
Got it, got it. But you're getting as much as you can out
Yeah,
of that whole
you try
thing.
to get as many pieces. But when you cut 36 line, you probably only gonna get 1 out of each
Sure.
piece of wood.
Would 36 line, which is what, 6 inches, be about the biggest that you would cut end grain?
That you cut on end wood. If you go over that, then you cut that on side wood.
Okay. And then were you gluing up boards
Yeah.
of side wood for that? Okay. That was probably easier to run through that planer. Or wouldn't it have been? No.
Every so often, they would catch and you'd rip your sandpaper and everything.
Because this is sort of an odd shape, but the machine's designed to cleat it in.
No, because you put these on there, I think, if I remember correctly, there's 2 clamps on one side and 1 clamp on the other side.
Okay.
So it held a piece of wood like this real nice.
Oh, all right. Well, what about the shellac? Did you have to do that too?
Yep,
Oh. How many coats are on?
1.
Oh, just a single one. And anything on the back?
Yes, you sprayed the back was a quick one.
All right.
And then the front you sprayed nice, and then you put them on racks like this. 24 hours later, then you lay them on a table, and you take your 2 sandpapers, 120 and 400, and sand them. Then you took steel wool and you rubbed all the shine out. That's got a nice dull finish like this.
Okay. That's a lot of work. I mean,
That's before it gets cut off.
Yeah, right. When you were trimming that 2 line, were you using the saw that's over there or more like that one?
This one was just used for cutting 2 line.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, because one person, that's all he did all day was just fill boxes up.
Oh, all right. You know,
He'd go through, cut a bunch of 36 line, then he'll cut a bunch of 10 line or something, and then 6 line, and then start with 36 line again. And I think there were 6 racks every day. I would have to polish 6
Oh,
racks.
really? Well, that'd build your arms up real good. You know, anyway, you work your way back to the idea of trimming, and it seems like it's a pretty fine, you know, mark that you've got to put on the type. Did you ever have an interest in wood engravers and the sort of things that they did with it, or it was just?
No, we shipped wood to them, but I
Oh.
never knew there was one in Kentucky
So they just wanted wood to.
cut to whatever size they wanted them. We cut them right to the. But I never saw what they did with it or not. But
Oh.
I was told it's for engravers.
Right, right. Yeah, I know Mardell once told me she made letters, she didn't really care what they spelled with them. You know?
Yeah. But then
And-
I think Alaska too took a
Oh,
lot
really?
of engraving that in Anchorage,
Uh-huh.
some college up there.
Oh, interesting. I think that in a little while we'll probably have you sort of show off your skill a little bit there, but you don't miss trimming type so much anymore?
Nope.
None?
I'm retired. I don't miss work at all.
So how many years all told between HWT and Hamilton, do you recall?
Probably about almost 30 or light 30.
Oh, well, a good amount of time. I was going to ask earlier if anybody else in your family had worked at Hamilton, but
No.
you were the only one that moved over this way, huh?
Yeah, oh, I got a brother, but he works in Kiel.
Okay. All right. So now the majority of your woodworking is done with a chainsaw and a splitter. Well, it's less, I wouldn't say less demanding, but you know, the size of the cutter is not as big a deal. You know, as we learn the whole process, it's been interesting because, well, Norb has taught us a little bit about finishing the wood, and Mardell, and you've given some lessons as well,
yeah.
which has been really helpful because it's the only way we get that story. If you know, if you don't tell it, there's nobody else who's been doing it. You know,
I think I'm about the last one, probably.
so that means we got to pay you more, I guess, right? We have a typeface here that has your name on it, called Artz.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what you thought about it, just in terms of either a type or having a type style named after you.
I just never thought of it much.
Yeah. But even that style had its own difficulties for trimming, didn't
Yeah.
it? Despite the fact that the guy didn't think that you'd have to trim it at all.
No, everything was round on it, but you still got to break the edges, stuff.
Well, and there were accents and,
Yeah.
you know, a few unusual things, the double S
X.
and that stuff.
And then you had to break the line through 'em.
Right.
Then you had to trim the round everything back off so it looked kind of decent.
Well, we haven't gotten another order for it yet, so you're in luck there. Although you might not come anyway if we wanted you to. But anyway, I appreciate you coming out and just letting us know about it. I think it's always fascinating to me. One of the things that I tell people is that when I first met you, I had some type that needed trimming, and I typically was doing reverse type for nameplates, door
Yeah.
plates, things like that. And so Darlene had asked me to cut a bunch of A's. And one of the things about cutting is that you have to lift up the tracer and move it into the interior of the letter. And I was not very good at it. And so I invited Dave to come in And he looked at him and he said, well, these aren't any good. And he was right. But the more important thing there is that I did have a lot of type for him to trim. And I think I had about a galley box, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this will probably keep him busy all day long, because that's 3 layers deep, right? And about, 24 by 12 inches worth. And so he came walking back from the trimmer's table about an hour and a half later and said, do you have anything else? And I thought, this guy's really fast. I mean, and I guess I never did it for a living, so I don't think about how quickly you know all the shapes, you know.
And depends what the letters are.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If you had a lot of M's and W's, it would have took longer.
That's true. That's true. A lot of O's make your life a lot easier.
O's and I's, they go fast.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I thought if anyone in the audience had any questions for you, you mind giving a stab at answering them?
No.
All right. Well, does anybody have a question for him?
I have a question.
Yes.
How much troubleshooting did you have to do, like, if a new font would come and you were cutting it for the first time, was it usually pretty accurate when you went to cut it, or did you have to alter it in ways? Was it like, did you have to do a lot of back and forth to get it where it needed to be, or was it pretty accurate? The patterns?
Well, the question had to do with the sort of troubleshooting you would do with a set of patterns. And I think from Dave's perspective, the patterns needed to be perfect before the type cutter got a hold of them, and they would be the first one to see if there was a flaw, correct?
Yeah. Well, they had to be square on a piece of wood and everything.
Did you ever make patterns?
No.
Okay.
I was supposed to, but never got that far.
Yeah, all right. So from that standpoint, other than squareness, it would have been the person before Dave who had that responsibility. Steph.
This goes along with that. Did you have a print of what it was supposed to look like? Nowadays, you're like thick and thin, and this is very trim. But originally, did you get a printout of what it was supposed to look like so you could match to that?
So I'm just repeating in
Yeah.
case it's hard for anybody, but what she was wondering is, if you're talking about style one or another, whether it's Cheltenham or Gothic or 854, did you have a chart so that you knew what the characters should
We had
look
a catalog.
like? Okay.
Back then, you just looked it up. But after years of doing it, you got to the point you just looked at it and you knew what it was.
Mm-hmm. One of that, I think that's kind of interesting, and that's what makes it such a neat question, I think, is do you think that if you saw a style of type, once you start seeing the way the letters are cut, how it's trimmed, that you could pretty much say the rest of it should be done in a similar way and figure that out?
Well, it's just pretty much a straight type. I can right now look at them and
know
what gets points, what doesn't get points.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing a new style that I never seen, then I need a chart,
Sure.
at least 4 or 5 different letters that tells me pretty much everything.
Right. So that'll tell you what the rest is going to be
Gonna be
like.
like.
Okay. I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, there are people who study typography who can do a similar thing, but,
Yeah.
well, you're doing the same thing for a different reason. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Did you do just English language type, or did
Yes.
you also do foreign?
Oh, we did some Greek for some colleges and stuff, whatever those were.
Fraternities and sororities, maybe?
Yeah.
Did you ever cut Hebrew? Didn't have a need for it? Okay.
No.
All right.
And it'd be very difficult as far as standards, right? Because you run incentive standards as far as producing so many of the type or trimming all that individual type. Did they always time it? I mean, was there a lot of time studies in this?
Yeah, it was all time study back
It was all
then.
time study. So actually,
You
what
had to
could
do
you
so
really
m-
make
Yeah.
in a day's time as far as percentage wise?
Well, this style was timed for this, and this, if the style changed, it was a straight type. Well, this size was a different one, then each size went up, the rates change.
You
Then,
would have a time study man come out? as
Yeah.
far as
oh,
checking
don't worry, they came out.
You know, but you know, that's gotta be really tough because, you know, to trim every little
Yeah, well,
part out of there for them to know, you know, so.
but it says the
But you made it
fancier it got, the more time you got per letter and stuff.
So you made out pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Once you learned it,
Yeah.
it was, for me, it was easy to make my percentage
That
or,
same as Jim remarked about that gallon pail, how fast you went through it, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you must have made pretty good standards.
well, your easy letters, you make up time for your harder letters. So at the end, it comes out about the same.
Then if, let's say you had an easy style for most of the day, you have any idea how many letters you'd have to do in over a shift?
I can't remember the,
That'd be a lot
you
to.
have to know what the rate is and then,
Did you know the rate as soon as you sat down to a given style, what was expected?
no, when they assigned us to it, there was a rate slip on there.
Mm-hmm.
The style and the rate, and then you had to punch in and out on it.
Okay, all right. Oh, yeah, I suppose per job. Yeah, per order. Okay. Well, any other questions before we make Dave give us a visual display? Well, then I'm going to say thanks now because I appreciate it. This is a facsimile of the station that Dave would work at. And because we've got a variety or a large number of people here, some will be able to watch him work, but we may need to move around a little bit. And then, like with all of our oral history series in the press room, we've got a commemorative poster that you too can crank out to remember the day. But thank you very much for coming. And once again, thanks to Stephanie Carpenter for setting this all up. Jeff Benzo for being our videographer extraordinaire. So thank you guys too. All right. Thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, good job.
File in between everything.
Yeah, this is, but I'll probably knife them.
Just to take the little burrs off.